Please join me in welcoming His Excellency الياس to the stage.
Good morning. I planned to speak of the podium, but when I saw Vikas standing here, I thought I'll leave my speech because it's not proper to stand and hold the papers in my hand. So I thought maybe I'll talk to you without a written speech, which is something I've been planning anyway. Thank you for inviting me to this very important event. The Varkey Foundation have been doing a lot of great work, and in my previous job, which will be future job again after I finish my role in the government, I worked a lot with my friend Sunny Varkey, and I know of the work that they're doing not just in the Arab world but all over the world, and in particular now some of the good work that they're doing in Africa, which is relevant to what I want to do in Lebanon, and maybe learn from the experience that they have had. We'll speak about that in a little bit. I want to take this opportunity to explain to you the crisis that we are, the educational crisis, and the crisis that Lebanon is going through as a result of the Syrian war. In Lebanon, we have 4 million Lebanese person living in Lebanon. We have 7 million Lebanese in Brazil, but in Lebanon we have 4 million Lebanese people in Lebanon. And we had 500,000 Palestinians who had to leave Palestine and go to Lebanon many years ago. Now with the Syrian crisis, we have 1.5 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon. So in a country of 4 million, we have 2 million refugees living in our country. And when I was asked to go to Lebanon to take on this job, for those of you who may not know, I've been living in Dubai since 1995 and working in education, and that's how I got to meet my friend Sunny. And 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, I was asked to go to Lebanon for 3 months to take on this post as Minister of Education. Why 3 months? Because at the time, we were supposed to be electing a president for the country. And after we elect a president, there'll be new government. So this government would go home. Unfortunately, for 2 years, we're not able to elect president, and we are stuck. We're stuck in the government, but we're stuck with a crisis that is there as a result of the Syrian war. In the education sector, in the role that I am playing, we have 250,000 Lebanese students in the Lebanese government system. 250,000 Lebanese in the government system. I have 450,000 Syrian school-age child that needs to go to school in Lebanon. Everybody knows Lebanon's situation, financial situation, economical situation. We are, we have debts, more than $40 billion. We don't have balanced budgets, deficit every year. The schools are suffering. The kids are going to sometimes schools that don't deserve to be called schools. We don't have financial means to build up new schools. We keep on trying to go for the international community, for donors, for help. We will talk about that in a bit. But also, we have a dated curriculum that goes back to more than 20 years ago, pre the internet, pre all that age. And it's not easy for us to support building all that without financial means. Then add to the crisis, to all the situation that we were in, the number of students that we had to deal with. I know that Mr. Varkey yesterday in his speech mentioned the size of the children, the amount of children that we have in Lebanon, and the importance of putting these children in schools. Because if we don't put in school the 450,000 child, they will be called, they will be given a new name in the future, the lost generation. And if we don't put kids in school for 2 years or 3 years, it will be very difficult after 4 or 5 years to put them back in school or for them to catch up. So these kids are there in Lebanon. They are subject to child labor, child prostitution, they're probably terrorism. Everything is open. All the doors are open for them. That's why I believed from day one that the place for every child is to be in the classroom. Despite the political differences that we have in Lebanon and the many issues and debates that we are having and the challenges that we face, political challenges that we face in Lebanon, that if you provide education for these children, you are encouraging the Syrians to remain in Lebanon. And this is a nightmare in Lebanon now, and everyone has been talking about it since the Palestinian crisis. So I had to think between listening to this pressure, the political pressure, and making the right decision, which any person in this room, any educator in the world, any person, any human being would do, is to work to put every child in the classroom regardless. And that's what I decided to do. But I had to go to the international community and say, we are prepared, we are ready, we can take on these children and put them in the classroom, but we need your help. And this crisis that started in Syria, it's not like any crisis at any time that happened anywhere in the world to any country. If you were to take the size that I explained and apply it in the United States, this is like probably 100 million decided to walk in from somewhere into the US in 1 year and ask for help, education, healthcare, you name it. And this crisis started with 7,000 refugees, 15,000, and it's not ending. I remember one time we went with the Clinton Global Initiative University initiative. My friend Justin Cooper is here. He invited me to go to that initiative in New Orleans. And we went there and we had a project to deal with the aftermath of the earthquake. Well, that earthquake hit New Orleans 2 days, 3 days after that. Sorry, it wasn't an earthquake, it was a hurricane. After the hurricane, you have to go and deal with the situation. While in Lebanon, we have an earthquake or a hurricane every day for the past 3-4 years. It's continuously growing, and the challenges are continuously growing. But at the same time, we have the will, and we wanted to move forward, and we put a plan together, educational plan called RACE, Reach All Children with Education. We started talking to our friends at the international community and the United Nations, the UNICEF, UNHCR, DFID, USAID, the Germans, many others, created a team and said, let's work together and figure out how we can help as a government. Let's partner between the government sector and the international community to work on these crises. And we did. The first year, we had a plan to put 100,000 child in school. And we did it. This academic year, our goal was 200,000, and we achieved. We went over 200,000 Syrian refugees in the Lebanese schools. How did this happen? How did this happen? We had to start thinking outside the box. We had to be creative. That's something most of you teach in your classrooms. That's something that I heard about at the last year's conference here, the same conference, when people started to say, how would you teach your children to start thinking outside the box, not just the regular education, to start being creative? So we applied that. We said, how can we be creative to accommodate all these children? We started a double shift system schools. So we used the same facilities that we have, and we decided that school could be utilized in the morning and another session in the afternoon. We started going in the afternoon and mixing schools, children, Syrians and Lebanese in the morning shift. Then you learn of all the challenges, because it's one thing to speak about it. It's easy to go and say, okay, we're going to mix the Syrians and the Lebanese children and put them in the same school. There's a language difference. The Syrians learn science, math, everything in Arabic. The Lebanese learn in English or in French. So mixing them was creating a problem for the Lebanese students. The aid that was coming from the international donors before I took on the ministry, let me explain it. Only poor people mainly go to the government system schools in Lebanon because they cannot afford going to private schools. So the international community was coming to give help and donations for the children, and they will go to a classroom and say, Syrian children, raise your hands. They give them a bag, they gave them a coat, and the equally poor Lebanese were not receiving anything. That started to create conflict between the host community and the refugees. So I had to hold a meeting and explain that we have to take care of the host community to succeed in providing education for the refugees. If you create a conflict between these two, the problem will become bigger. So we quickly dealt with this, and this problem was resolved. The next thing that happened is we understood that the children who were 8 years old and above were having more difficulty going into the same educational system with the Lebanese. That's why we created a double shift system, and we put the Syrian kids in a school in an afternoon shift on their own, and then we started teaching them languages. The younger ones, they started learning from KGs up. They learned languages very quickly, very fast, and now they are at the same standard with the Lebanese students in terms of languages, because they have in Syria a very good system in education, but the language was the barrier. We also found out that there are other obstacles. Some parents who have never been to school before in their lives themselves don't understand the importance of going to school. When we go visit in the, unofficial settlements that we call it in Lebanon, we see parents, we meet with them, and we ask them why these kids are not in school. Some of the answers, well, we need them to help because we need food, which is more important, so they put them to work in the field to harvest potatoes. And I'm talking 7 and 8-year-old children working for $2 or $3 a day, just to help the parents to get food so they can go and rest and make sure they can sleep and eat. Challenges are enormous, a lot of challenges. We have also another issue. Many of the parents don't like to send their daughters out of the house to send them to school because they don't trust the system. So we have to deal with the situation and find a way that makes them feel comfortable. Convince them. We are selling this idea to the parents to explain to them that it's important to send your children to schools. All these things that we are facing, now we have a parallel team that is working to deal with the situation, because we have a plan by 2017 to have all 450,000 child in school in Lebanon. Even they're going to be more than the Lebanese students in the Lebanese government system. And for that reason, the international community is helping us and is putting on one conference after the other to help fundraise for this situation. And the cost is not much. The student costing us $336 a year. $336 a year for one child to go to school in Lebanon. And when we do a double shift system, when we open a school specially for the Syrians, that number rises to about $550 a year. So these funds need to be raised. And I'm going to say it quite openly from this podium. The international community is moving too slow. The donors are moving too slow. The education system cannot wait. If we miss an academic year, it's not easy to come and go halfway through the year and say, now I have more funds to put on more children in school. We have a lot of promises. We have a lot of people who came forward and pledged, but the system is too slow. We don't see that moving as fast as it should be. Every year that's going away from the future of these kids is a disaster. And the more we keep them out of school, the more difficult it's going to be for us to put them back in school. So I will call on the international community and all the donors, especially after the London conference that we attended last year, and was a great conference, by the way. A lot of support, a lot of potential donors that came forward and are interested to help in education, especially that we prove that we can make it happen. But if the system continues to be slow, we will not be able to resolve the situation. We will have a lost generation in the region. This will mean more migration into Europe, into the West, into the US and Canada, and everywhere else. And this is when we started seeing the interest from the international community, when these people felt that they have no hope whatsoever. No hope in Lebanon, no hope in the region, and decided to leave, take those boats and go over, crossing the Mediterranean Sea to go over to Europe. And you all know the catastrophe and the crisis that are happening as a result of this illegal immigration through the sea. So I will say the international community should take this more seriously. We need to provide hope for these children. We need to provide them hope where they are, and also we need to provide them hope that there's a return to their home country one day. As soon as this country is safe for them to go back, and the international community must do more to have a political settlement in Syria and try and send these refugees back home as soon as possible. They want to go back home. Why do they want to go back home? Because every child I meet in every school, I ask them this question. There was one time I was with Gordon Brown, the UN Special Envoy for Education. We went to visit a school in Beirut, and we asked the girl, what do you want to do? What do you want to study after school? She said, I want to become an engineer. And we asked her why. She said, I want to go back and build Syria once I grow up. So these people have a dream. They have hope. They want to go back. But we have to provide them with a proper education for them to be able to do it. We have to, because the international community, and I'm going to say something that many people may not like when they hear it up in the media or in the news. The international community spent, until now, billions of dollars on the war in Syria. But no one is prepared to move as fast and spend few millions to educate these children that had to leave Syria as a result of this war. Now, we need to all work on that. We need to stop the war, and we need to start educating people. This is the right thing for all of us to do. And there's a lot of sad stories when you go and see what happened in those refugee camps with these children. At the London conference, I mentioned a story, and I will repeat it now. We don't only deal with educating them, we deal with many issues. I got a phone call one day from the responsible person of a region north of Lebanon to tell me one of the Syrian refugees' children died in the classroom, a 7-year-old Muhammad. And I was worried because I thought, something could have happened, an accident. I asked the school principal and all the team there to rush to hospital and get the father on the phone. I want to talk to him to see what is this, what happened. They told me that he is ill and he died in the classroom. So I spoke to the father. He's a father of 7 children. And he said, thank you, 4 of them are in school for free. 2 of them are home, and Muhammad now died. The 2 of them that are home and Muhammad had an illness. His heart failed. He's got they call it a hole in the heart. They get born with such illness. The sad story is the father never took them to hospital. He didn't know that he can get help and he can get these children treated so they can get a better future. So Muhammad's situation is one of millions that the refugees are facing all over the world now. And each day you'll hear a different story like this one. With Muhammad's situation now, we started a program to also help them with healthcare. And, help the parents understand it. Help the parents feel that someone is supporting them, is standing by them. Give them hope. And hope will only be given through proper education, through shelter, and through food. I don't want to talk much about this. I just want to end by saying education is the only way to move forward. We can never build any nation without proper education. You all know what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore. He decided not to spend money on arms or anything else. He said we should only be spending money on education. And he turned Singapore from one of the poorest countries to one of the most strong economies of the world. Why? Through education. So I think the power that all of you have, all the educators around the world, and the teachers that are here, especially who are nominated for the great award that the Varkey Foundation is putting together, and your colleagues, the role that you are playing in educating people and children is the only way forward. We just need to make sure that the governments and the systems catch up with these great ideas, make the changes necessary, change the curriculum on a regular basis to make sure we can catch up with the children, especially those that are ahead of us now. I learned from my own son about things on the internet and about technology. If the curriculums are dated and if they remain to be dated, we will not be teaching. We will not be providing the children more than what they know. We should get creative. We should have this great interactive curriculum system similar to the one that the Varkey Foundation had worked on in Ghana, in the girls' schools, interactive distance learning program. We can use that program, I spoke about it in the beginning, to teach many of the Syrian refugees, whether they are in their camps or anywhere else. We should invest a lot in such projects. We should replicate this. It was a very successful experience. We should work on it. Vikas and I have discussed it. I don't know, where did he go? We have discussed that several times. We will be meeting to talk about it, to use this as an opportunity for the crisis that we are living in the region. You did a great job there. We need to use that platform. We need to talk to the international community and say, it worked, here how it worked. We can do the same thing to help the rest of the children that are in need around the world. I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you, my friend Sunny Varkey, for this invitation. I wish you all the best of luck and keep on doing this great work that you're doing for education, not just here, as I said, but around the world, because the future is in education. Thank you very much.